The world is saved. The living room's dark save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions, how's it going?
See, this is why we need to do a video podcast, because the people at home can't see that while we're speaking, our mouths are just flapping at a constant speed as long as there's sound coming out.
Exactly. No, I think I think that it, like, literally everyone in the Star Fox, I almost said StarCraft. I was like StarCraft, Star Trek, Star Search. No, none of this is right.
The Star Foxiverse.
Are just in the constant state of having seizures, you know?
And yet they speak almost fluently.
Yeah, but no, that's I don't know why that was the animation choice, but that's visuals, and that is yet to come.
Aha. So we played not the OG Star Fox, which is actually the one I have slightly more exposure to. We played Star Fox 64, which came out later than I thought, actually. It came out in the middle of 1997.
Came out in 2017.
Weird. These graphics are so not 2017. 2016 at best. No, I was like, I don't know, man. The late 90s, like, for us, given our age, like, I'm really clear on things that came out in the early 90s, and I'm really clear on things that came out in, like, the later noughties, you know, the, like, 2005 plus. That's what they're called.
Sorry.
I know.
No.
Damn it, I was so hoping that would slip by, but the look on your face said absolutely not.
No, this far, no further. Like I wasn't even looking, like the audience can see, I wasn't even looking directly at the screen. I was looking at something off screen. Like, I heard that and just slow pan, like, did you just say, like, oh, the 90s or the noughties? And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, the years weren't, I mean, they were pretty sexy, but they weren't that sexy. I don't know.
It's not ease.
Oh, no, I got there. I'm just not going to leave it alone. I mean, I get it.
All right. Well, at this point, there's no salvaging it, so I'm going to just soldier on. But that middle, like, 95 to 2005, like, I frequently screw up. Like, I've even just done this recently where somebody was like, oh, that movie came out in whatever. And I'm like, no, surely it's older than that. And then I looked it up and it was like a decade more recent than I thought it was. Because I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it was a weird time in my life. Like, everybody's, you know, that part of their life is hard to remember or what. But 97. And I'll tell you my experience for this because it's pretty limited. I played it a couple of times at Brian's house, I think. I know I played the Super Nintendo one over there a bunch, and I'm pretty sure I also poked around at the 64 one, but, like, to the point where this was a mostly new experience for me.
For me, my Nostalgia Goggles experience is this was another game that I just poured hours into, man. And we'll get into, this game has a feature which we'll discuss in detail later, which it has like a kind of a user-defined difficulty to it, where, like, if you play the game a certain way, it determines which stage you go to. So you don't have like a true stage select. But I played this game so much that I couldn't remember which things you needed to do to get to the stage and which was like the insane, like, personal stuff I levied on myself to do what I considered to be like a perfect playthrough. Because I was like, oh man, you have to blow up all of this stuff. Do you? Or was this just like something that, like, I felt that I had failed if I didn't do it right? This is also a thing where I was just kind of like, I was like, oh man, I want to be like a drone pilot. Like, I thought that was like what I wanted to do because I was like, oh man, I just love this game so much. And then I stopped playing my N64 and forgot about it forever because I did not. Okay, so first of all, I would like to lodge a formal complaint with whoever created the human mind because it just is not up to par, right? Because, like, there are games that we have played where I will sit down and be like, I don't really remember this game, and then like as you're doing it, like, you see like all of the trigonometry like passing in front of your face, you know, and you're just kind of like, I remember everything about this game, you know, I remember the sound, the music, this, that. This is one where I was like, oh yeah, no, I've got this. I sat down to play it, and I'm like, I have no idea where anything is or how anything's done. I'm like, come on, Brain, you've been in there the whole time. You can't do a little bit better than this.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything on how I felt like the game held up, but it did feel overall, I guess forgettable is probably the right word. Like, nothing about it seemed to have the gravity, the
gravitas,
the meat of something with a lot of longevity to it. And I don't like, that's not really a critique of it as an individual product, as more like its ability to spawn a franchise. Like, to me, Star Fox is a character you play in Smash Brothers. Like, that is his legacy. Like, this weird pilot thing we're about to talk about, like, that is not his legacy. It's him being a pretty solid choice in Super Smash Brothers.
And actually, this is, apropos of nothing. So since I don't have a good place to slot it in, I'm going to slot it in here because you mentioned legacy. So do you know the whole deal with?
I do. But tell me, because it's awesome.
Yeah. So basically, Star Fox has like these like cool like little like metal armor legs, or so you'd think. He doesn't have metal armor legs. He has mechanical legs. The reason why they have mechanical legs is because they removed the pilot's legs so that way they can handle higher Gs because there's less leg for the blood to go into.
Yeah, which is an insane like kowtowing to real physics in a world with a talking fox as the main character. Like, someone sat down at Nintendo and was like, these ships, like, they're flying so fast and they're banking so hard. Like, I mean, this talking fox monster would surely pass out. And everyone was like, what if he had sci-fi robot legs so that there was less body mass for the blood to get forced into on those hard turns? My God, somebody like ran over to a whiteboard and was like crunching the numbers, and they were like, that would work. That would totally explain why they don't pass out. And no one in the room said, like, they're talking animals.
They're talking animals
in space.
That mouths move independently of the words that they're forming. Like, so that was, yeah. But no, I thought that was a very, like you said, like interesting attention to detail kind of thing. It's like, oh man, if this is happening, we have to replace our legs with mechanical ones. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense.
So I will say, and then we can start topics proper. But this is actually a note I threw into just my like end episode section where it's like random crap if we get around to it. But Wolf, like one of the main antagonists, he makes some very clear, very strongly worded threats to you about how you will soon be seeing your father again. And other characters definitely talk about like what it was like when your father was alive. So for an antagonist in a Nintendo game that is like ostensibly marketed to, youngish children to be like, you'll be seeing your father soon. It's like, did he just threaten to kill me? I think he just threatened to kill me. And something about like, I know lots of games have violence and like you kill the bad guys, but something about, this character has a family, right? Like Star Fox has a family and his father is dead and I think was killed in action. And then while you are on a mission for an opposing, like the enemy fighter to be like, I'll do you just like I did your father. It's like, there's a lot more emotional weight to that than like stomping a Goomba.
Yeah. No, it is a little heavier, but
this game, there's more like, because the aesthetic, hey, this could be our transition into visuals. the aesthetic is like very colorful and cartoony and not in a bad way, but a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the themes and like story beats are fairly mature, like fairly sophisticated, which the more I played the game, I was like, these things clash a little bit to me. Like, this is a little bit more bright and colorful than I feel like it should be for this, like, heavy, like, kind of the fate of the universe is on your shoulders, not in like a we saved the day kind of way, but like in a if you don't, millions will die kind of way.
Right. And then, of course, there's also all of the subtle racism. But
Subtle racism.
Fair. But yeah, so top of the hour visuals.
It's colorful.
Yeah,
it's pretty-ish.
Yeah, it's colorful. It's pretty. Okay, so this I'm just gonna go right into a nitpicky thing because why not? So the way they handled the cockpits took me years to figure out what was actually happening there, because, and I don't think that I like. Okay, so basically what they do is they've got the head in the cockpit that like can move around and whatnot. Like that's actually rendered as a 3D poly, and then they billboard their hands and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't get that like at all as a kid. I literally thought that they were like immersed in mechanical stuff, like up to like that they were like locked into the ship, like, and that made sense to me because if you're worried about your pilots experiencing G's to the point where you're cutting off their freaking legs, then maybe don't have a steering column that is arm's length away from you. Like, isn't that also good? I mean, that's the whole point of like, because if you look at the animation, the way it's actually drawn on, like their arms are out like they're holding a steering wheel, and it's the whole reason why in jet fighters you have the joystick down by your crotch is because when you
flight stick,
go to hell. No, so the whole reason you've got the joystick down by where your crotch is no, but the reason why is because like when you pull up, right, or do anything, right, it pushes your arms down so you can still control the plane without like basically like holding out a 100-pound dumbbell that is now your fist, shoulder width in front of you. And so I was like, so we're chopping off people's legs, but we don't bring the steering column closer to them, like that. That's just sloppy. That's sloppy.
Yeah. No, the visuals, like there are little details that are weird and off. In the very end of the game, because it took me quite a while, but I did actually make it all the way to the end, which I was kind of proud of myself for. But the
wait but through the green path, right?
Path. Yeah.
The red path, buddy. Get out of my office.
No, that's fair.
I mean,
it's okay the way you choose to spend your life. It's your life.
It is. I chose to spend it getting good.
Getting good. There's no way to say that right.
Nope.
But so like at the end, or at least in the ending I saw, I don't know if there's multiple endings for the multiple paths, but when you go to your like Han Solo, Luke Skywalker medal ceremony, you are a 3D rendered model, right? And the rest of the Foxians, Team Fox,
Team Fox.
Well,
okay, yeah. No, that's the thing, because he's Star Fox McCloud.
Yeah, and his dad has like it's like John McCloud.
I think it's James. It's James McCloud. Yeah. Because that was the thing, is I was like, okay, so first of all, if the names are like Peppy, Skippy, like all right, and then what jerk James was to name his child Star Fox? Like that's weird, man. He must have gotten picked on at school.
Yeah, totally. And the ship they fly around in, like the main one that gets you like planet to planet, is, I think it's literally the Big Fox. And it's like, really?
Which looks like a fox in no way. I mean, like,
nah, I mean, it's a stylized, but not really.
I would say it looks more like a brontosaurus.
Yeah. Anyway, so in your Luke Skywalker ceremony at the end of Star Wars there, you and your Team Fox, you're all like 3D models, and the soldiers, like there's rows of soldiers on both sides of the walkway, like exactly like the end of Star Wars and a lot of other movies, military movies. They are JPEGs. They are flat. So you are walking through a completely flat environment. Like, it looks horrible. It looks so horrible. It
looks end of Chrono Trigger horrible. Like a whole bunch of dancing people like slowing down the frame rate to a crawl horrible.
Those are beautiful graphics. They're just not moving. These are horrible graphics that are also not moving because it's a static JPEG. But it's, oh God, dude, like, and the whole ending sequence, because, so here's what I want to say about the graphics. If all you saw, like if you walked into the room and you saw someone who just beat Star Fox 64, you'd be like, this game has some of the worst graphics I've ever seen in my life. And then if you walked out and walked back in and they were just playing the first level, you'd be like, no, this game looks okay. Because the main game graphics, like when you are just flying around, they went with very simple textures, a lot of, you know, solid colors because things are like made out of metal, and like the robots and that you're fighting are like made out of metal and stuff. So like, and the aliens are like lots of solid greens and reds and things. So like, there's a lot of solid colors that still look good because they're things that it makes sense would be solid colors. You know, sand stretching on forever, big stone walls that are just like a shade of red. But then at the end, there's just these JPEGs, just like JPEGs. And like, oh my God, like it literally looks like the art direction was done by two different people because someone obviously realized, oh, we should make the ships kind of look like this because those will render really well with the amount of 3D processing we have. And then at the end of the game, somebody else, I assume, was just like, nah, JPEGs. JPEGs are the way forward for 3D games, and no one like corrected that thought.
I mean, honestly, like they probably were like, man, nobody's gonna watch this. Like once they beat the game, they're just gonna hit start and play again. And this is okay. So this is also briefly tangential, but it is something that I just wanted to touch on real fast as we are playing more and more N64 games. Is they really, in my own personal opinion. Well, you know what? I take that back. So I was going to say they got lazy with the naming conventions for these games because it's like, oh man, we're going to make Star Fox or the N64. What are we going to call it? Let's call it Star Fox 64. Okay.
Oh,
right,
this
fine.
is a thing that Nintendo does because there was the game Super the Game, Game 64.
64.
And then remember there was also the Game Boy games that were the Game Boy game and then the Game Boy game Advanced. Right. And then the Game Boy game 3DS. And now like there's literally new Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. Like that is a thing that Nintendo let go through their marketing department and probably made them $1 billion.
True. Probably because like in Japanese, it's just like one syllable. It's like all of that.
It's like a single stroke.
It's like woo. What does that mean? Super Mario Brothers Wii U Deluxe. Yeah, and so okay, and we kind of touched on it briefly before, but I think we need to kind of just at least mention it in this section in case somebody like goes to like the bookmarks or like I want to just listen to about the visuals, like that we cover it in the right section. Is the talking animation is banana pants stupid.
It's so bad. And it's bad in a way that I refuse to believe is a technical limitation. Someone did that as a design choice.
Yeah. And and the thing is that I don't remember because I never played Star Fox, the Star Fox. So I don't know if this is like in service to the brand, you know, where it's like, well, they did this in Super Nintendo Star Fox, so they got to do it in N64 Star Fox. But yeah, no, I could not. And as a kid, I didn't really notice it or it didn't bother me, you know. But man, as an adult, I was like, why was this the call? You know, like they could have just slowed it. Even if they just slowed it down by about 50%, like it doesn't. We don't need the head bobbing to sync perfectly with the speech. We just need it to not be clearly 1,000 times faster. You know.
Well, and I mean, 1,000 times is like barely hyperbole, right? Because here's a good reference point. So a lot of our listeners probably can share this. In Dragon Ball, the dragon's mouth just opens and closes and opens and closes in kind of a slow, like, and whatever he's saying, his mouth moves at that exact same pace. And for the people who had to localize that into other languages, that must have been a godsend to just be like, oh, well, just speak just have the voice actor speak his lines of dialogue and it'll be fine because his mouth is just slowly opening and closing. It didn't match the Japanese either, right?
Yeah, no, there was one guy on the localization team named Dan who had actually seen the thing beforehand. They were splitting up tasks. They were like, okay, like somebody needs to localize Vegeta. We need Krillin. We need this. We need the Eternal Dragon. Dan's like, I'll just take the Eternal Dragon. Nobody really needs to look at it. I got that one. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this feels like a good first project for me. But this the Star Fox 64 talking animation is I mean, the flapping is constant, and it's to the point where you can actually almost like your eye sees like the light trail because it's jittering so fast. So not only are the graphics, because they're blocky early polygon graphics like you would expect from the 64, which works awesome in gameplay because the ships are spaceships and they're super angular, right? And like you don't feel like they skimped out on the polygons because that's how the ship is supposed to look. And then there's like big towers, which are just big like rectangles or like kind of cylinder things, and like you don't really feel like they skipped out on the polygons because it's like, well, it's a tower, like it's a monolith from 2001. It's supposed to look like that. It's a domino, right? But then you see the characters themselves and you're like, okay, yeah, now I can see like they have kind of bug eyes and like they have overly pointy features because that's the limitation of the time. But it doesn't really, that crap does not really hit the fan until they open their mouths to speak, and then you're just like, oh my lord.
Yeah, no, and I assume that, many of our listeners listen, like when they're like doing chores around the house or what have you. But I'm sure that there's some that listen on like a drive into work. So it's for those in particular that I think that this exercise would be particularly helpful, which is shake your head back and forth as fast as you can. You're not even close. Like that's how fast they're like jittering back and forth. Like I cannot shake my head like fast enough, trying as hard as I can. So please do that. But also that, just to give you like a frame of reference in case you don't remember the visual, and like I said, it is to the point where it pulls you out of the game a little bit to like kind of see.
No, it's jarring.
Yeah, when Pepe's like, do a barrel roll. Oh my god, no, actually, I've got that in audio, but like,
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I do need to mention something that I think I may have talked about when we played Super Mario 64, and I know I forgot to mention when we played Smash. So I'm glad we have another 64 game for me to mention this, because now I have 3 data points, and that's a trend. Text rendering on the Nintendo 64 is garbage. It is utter garbage. Every single piece of text looks like crap. It looks like it has been written by hand and then like taped onto the screen because they forgot to put words in the game. And I have no idea why this bothers me so much. I really don't, because I know a lot of people who are designers, and when they talk about like, oh, well, this iPhone has, a DPI of whatever, but the other one only had a DPI of whatever. Can you imagine trying to read a long form article at that DPI? The text rendering would be absurd. Like those people, they toss their flannel shirts charmingly over their shoulders. I assume they all live in Oregon. That kind of thing, I don't. Like, I understand the technology of it, but I don't understand how they can care that much. This must be how they see the world all the time. Because every N64 game I sit down to, as soon as they put a word on the screen, I'm just like, please don't show me 2D text. Please render it in 3D. And then they put up 3D text, and I'm like, oh, God, please go back to the 2D text.
No. No. I did not.
So grainy and ugly, and there's usually like a gradient that makes it look totally out of place with the surrounding artwork. I just hate it.
Yeah. I have 2 other notes for visuals. One is I thought that they did do a good job making you feel like little things that they did to make you feel like the world is kind of like alive to a degree. And one of the things is that when you shoot your lasers into like the ground, like it will scar the ground.
Yeah, isn't there like a little kind of like little
yeah,
pop,
like it kicks up a little dust, and then but there's definitely like the red like scorched like little laser things, and like stuff like that is definitely the little attention to details that make you feel like it's not a shooting gallery, that it is actually a world that you're in,
with no legs.
Yeah, with no legs. I mean, got legs. They replaced them.
Well,
You know,
yes.
I mean, I did this. This is definitely tangential, but I did a D&D adventure one time where like there was like a torture scene, and basically the idea was that they would remove the character's arm and then cast regeneration to regenerate it back, and then remove the arm again. And the player got really upset about that, and she was like, "You took my arms and legs." I'm like, "I gave them back. I gave you new ones." You know,
Gotcha
and
was.
yeah, and apparently that's not enough. So some people just, you know, they really they just it's just never enough.
Some people
But-
hold grudges, and that's not healthy. It's not healthy to
No,
carry
it is-
that emotional tension around with you just because of like
Exactly.
an arm or a couple legs. Come on, get over yourself.
Yeah, come on. I mean, it's just water under the bridge. I mean, you know, just because I believe before what I said was I gave you the ability to hold your arms and clap your hands at the same time.
That's messed
Anyways,
up.
so there's that. So I did like that. Both the arms thing and the lasers thing. The one other note I have for visuals is Gundams, because I really love in Japanese copyright law that like there kind of is none. So, you know, like
Yeah, Asia seems pretty liberal about some of that stuff.
they are. And to be fair, there is something to be said about, you know, saying like, listen, you can't just squat on IP forever and like hoard it, you know, like let somebody else like take a crack at it. But yeah, like in the second level on hard mode, it's just Gundams all over the place. And I was just kind of like, I am enjoying this. I'm enjoying just shooting me some Gundams, man. This is pleasant.
Well, the bosses, the enemy ships, the little turrets and things, like they all feel pretty good. Like like I said, a lot of things made out of metal. A lot of the aliens are like greens and reds and look very like unnatural and otherworldly, like you would expect, right? But they didn't try, because the, you know, Fox and Falco and Peppy and Slippy, they all have earthbound counterparts that you would say like, oh, he's a fox, you know, she's a she, right? Slippy.
I always thought Slippy was a guy.
So I was saying he, and then somebody in the room while I was playing went, isn't that a woman? And I was like, you know, their voice is really high, but I thought, I don't know. I think it might
he's
actually be
supposed to be a kid.
That's weird.
Like he's like really young.
Okay.
Like is that like
Yeah.
he's like the like, because in the same way that Peppy's like the grizzled old veteran, you know,
Oh,
like
yeah, you got
and Falco's like
the
the
newbie.
yeah, like so my understanding is that, you know, Fox is like the stalwart leader, Peppy's like the old veteran who served with your father and he knows how to do barrel rolls. And you got Falco, who's like the, you know, like hot shot, you know, like I know what's going on, you know, you're only in command, the Raphael,
Yeah.
right? You know, and then you got Slippy, who is like the grease monkey, who, you know, like but it actually kind of similar to the fact that in like Firefly, that what's her name is like younger, you know.
Oh, right. Like really talented. So like kind of their position is advanced beyond their years because of their ability.
Correct. Yeah, that was always the feel I got. I don't have any like canon or data to support that. You know, like
Well,
I was way too busy looking up leg facts.
And I mean, and the audio, which we will get to soon.
Soon.
It's not clear enough where I could definitively say that is it's a woman trying to be a woman. It's a woman trying to be a young boy, or it is actually a higher pitched man doing that voice acting. Like I mean, I could look this up. Anyway, one other thing I want to say about the graphics, because I know we will talk about this in the mechanics, but I feel like in 2D games, we felt very strongly about the hitbox, and in 3D games, I've come to realize I feel just as strongly about the camera, and the camera in this game is hot garbage. It is not anywhere near as bad as Super Mario 64's camera, and I will never stop being willing to die on that hill. But the camera in this is bad because technically it's drifting the ship back in front of the camera, but it feels like the camera's floating, you know, back behind the ship. You often cannot see what is literally right in front of you unless you switch to the cockpit view, and the cockpit view sucks. So it's like, again, kind of like Super Mario 64 and like I'm sure a lot of games from this era, but like they were like, oh, well, we'll do like third person so you could like see the ship and you can avoid projectiles in a way that you couldn't really if you were in the ship, right? And then somebody else was like, but then like you won't really be able to see what's in front of you unless we put the camera way over here, and we either didn't think of that or we're not going to do it. And it's like, oh, we'll also give them a cockpit view, but make sure it's terrible. So make sure both views are terrible so neither of them really solves your problem, and you find yourself either suffering with one all the time or flitting between them constantly. Because I tried the flitting between them constantly and I ended up just suffering with the third person view.
Yeah, no, the camera is definitely a little janky. I will certainly agree with that. It's there's definitely a number of times when I would get frustrated with not knowing, especially in the 3D level, like, well, not 3D, they're all 3D. The levels where you're not just moving linearly forward.
Oh, where
like
you're off rails and you can like free fly. Yeah.
Those like that. Where favorite. I mean, that's the thing is I liked the levels, like I liked playing them, but I would get frustrated with the camera because like I would say like, okay, you know, I would like literally sometimes zoom as far away as I could so that way I could like double back and then see everything as opposed to being like, okay, well this is over there. So yeah, no, that would get frustrating. But do you have anything else for visuals?
Nah, I mostly liked them. I just felt like the camera is so necessary because you need to point your guns. Like it sometimes took me out of the experience and made me think about what was happening in a really analytical way and like okay, how does this line up with that, and will I hit this thing if I pull the trigger? Whereas like I wanted to just kind of enjoy like, oh, I'm in space, like flying a spaceship. So the camera detracted from what I felt like were otherwise pretty pleasant visuals. Pretty good.
So sound. So I actually have a note for music. I'm very proud of myself. I know, right? No, which is that you know, the music on all of the levels is fine, but specifically when you're gearing up to go into a level and then when you're finishing, all of the music has a lot of like snare drum and trumpet, which gives it a very militaristic feel, which I felt was very appropriate. Even though you're a mercenary.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like a lot of media gets that weird where they're like, they do all the trappings of military for mercenaries, and it doesn't always make total sense in my mind. Like I'm with you that it's like, you know, oh, because we're an elite corps of people who do this for money.
People who aren't directly affiliated with the government. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, it does kind of give it that kind of, you know, regimented for queen and country kind of, you know, feel that you're doing it to, you know, save your country, which is good. Yeah. Cause honestly, the mercenary with a heart of gold, it's just kind of like, so did Star Fox get paid at the end of all of that, or did he do it? I don't know.
Oh, no.
But anyways, that's not the point.
No, okay. I have this. Yes, he does get paid. And I know that.
Yeah?
Yes, because this is actually a visual that I thought was like, it tickled the crap out of me for some reason. So when I finally did make it to the end, which I assume you probably saw this as a kid, and if you didn't beat it this time, it's just not on top of your mind. But like after, you know, credits and everything, the way they show you your score, like your cumulative score for the entire game, it's on an invoice.
Nice.
And I was just like, I freaking love that, because it's like the score thing feels kind of old fashioned by the 3D era. And it's like, oh, are we still keeping score in video games? Like, it doesn't impact anything. Is this still a thing we care about? So like, it's kind of an outmoded idea by this point in history, but then to have it communicated as like the amount, because it tells you your score and like you blew up this many things and you shot this many dudes, and right. And so it's like, oh, we are literally billing them. Like your total score is billing them for each enemy you killed. I was like, this is kind of great. I kind of super love this.
Yeah, no, I think, cause I did beat it, but like once I beat it, I was short on time, so I was like, "Yay, I did it! I did the thing."
Right.
Okay, I gotta go. Like, I didn't kind of watch the closing credits. Okay, so the verbal tics that your teammates have, it is on par with Octonauts bad. Like,
Ooh.
and yeah, like that. I have very strong feelings about the show Octonauts. Mostly that. So this is completely tangential, but do you watch Octonauts at all? Is that
I do not. That is stayed out of my my household.
Yeah, no. So basically, long story short, is it's they're underwater and it's kind of like a faux military, very similar to this, right? But there's a polar bear who's like the captain, and there's a cat that used to be a pirate that says "me hearties" after almost everything he says. And I'm like, this is bordering on verbal tic territory. That and the fact that like every single thing that he has to add to the conversation is mind-blowingly stupid, insubordinate, or crazy, you know? And so I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at the captain for continuing to allow this kind of chicanery to happen on his ship. That's not the point. The point is if Peppy told me to make a barrel roll one more time, I was going to barrel roll myself into his ship, like killing both of us. But like I wanted to do it so I rolled into his ship and like could reach like both of our cockpits were like head to head, and then reach out and strangle him to death as we both go down like two eagles making love into the earth. You know, just so that way I knew that I personally murdered him.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt about it though. Maybe did you like that?
No, I'm not only am I 100% with you, but the way I summed it up in my notes, how I felt about him is shut up, Navi, because they did not evenly distribute the whiny game universe needs to tell the player what to do-ness out, right? They consolidated it all in Peppy because Peppy is the grizzled veteran who would surely think he knows best, right? What would be nice is if they recorded like 3 extra lines of dialogue and had a Falco version and a Slippy version, because the Peppy version is like, you know, I'm trying to tell you to make sure you kids know how to fly them starships, right? Press Z twice to do a barrel roll, right? Like that would be on brand for him. And then they could have like the Falco version, which is like, you know, oh, did you forget that it's Z twice to do a barrel roll, right? And then they could have the Slippy
dumbass.
They could have the Slippy version where he's like, you know, oh, I almost forgot it's Z twice to do a barrel roll, ha, because I'm like the noob, right? And then if you weren't barrel rolling as much as the game engine thought you should be barrel rolling, then they could like mix up which one of those you get, and it would make it a lot less obnoxious. Instead, it is an entire game of, hey, listen, hey, yeah. Listen. And, and I know like this is a design struggle to give a player the information they need in a way that doesn't totally shatter the fantasy of the game world, but not just let them bang their head against the wall over and over because they have forgotten that you press Z twice to do a barrel roll. But you need to communicate that information in a way that also doesn't make them want to wish they didn't know it, like out of spite. Like, you know what? I'm going to just crash right into this alien instead of using my little like U-flip maneuver, because if you tell me how to do it one more time, I'm going to U-flip right into the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's and honestly, I even back when I was really good at the game, I never barrel rolled, man. I didn't need any of that stuff. Like I didn't need that. But yeah, I think that because they do have the characters do some verbal cues that I think are very important. For example, like on Corneria, the first level, right? So, and again, we'll get more into this in mechanics, but in order to go to the hard stage, all of the little arches, you have to fly through all of them, right? If you fly through all of them, then Falco's like, follow me, Fox, and he like takes you off to fight the different boss, which then takes you to, you know, the hard level, right? But what happens is after you fly through 2, Falco says, pretty smooth flying, Fox, you know, to like encourage you to continue. Like the game's recognizing like, hey, good job, keep it up, like stuff like that. And so there's definitely items like that to let you know, like, hey, this is where there's like a thing for you to do, and that's super important. But then when you muddy the water and dilute that out with them just like not shutting the hell up about, like and specifically the barrel roll, man.
It is. The barrel roll is, I mean, that's why it's a meme, because he says it sometimes seemingly for no reason. Like if there's people shooting at me, because when you barrel roll, it'll like reflect if you time it right. It's like a perfect block in like a combat, hand-to-hand combat game. And that's impossible to do, by the way, because the camera sucks. But the amount of times he's told me to do a barrel roll when I was like, we're alone. Like, we're flying alone in the middle of a desert. Like, the boss hasn't come up yet, and there's no regular enemies anymore. Like, why are you giving me this advice right now?
Because he's just bored, and he's like, I'm bored. Hey, Fox, do a barrel roll. I like it when you do barrel rolls,
Oh,
Fox.
God. He has a serious traumatic brain injury from the accident, or from the battle that killed James McLeod. Like he has like a horrible brain injury, like a big brain bruise or something. And like, as far as he's concerned, this is the first time he's given you that advice.
Ooh, I like that. I also like the idea that that the reason why James died was because he didn't barrel roll.
Oh God, and this just haunts him.
Yes, that's why it's so important to him.
Oh my God.
That Fox knows to do a barrel roll, and anytime like a single laser comes at him, he like has this horrible panic attack. His blood runs cold. Breaks out into a sweat, thinking like, "No, Fox, do a barrel roll. If only your father had."
Okay.
Other things with the sound that I liked. No, I did. I did like I did think that they did a good job with some of the sound effects, doing some of the heavy load and the cognitive load, heavy lifting of conveying information. Specifically, that things make different sounds when you damage them versus when you destroy them. Mm-hmm. And like other little things, for example, when you collect gold rings, they make a different noise when you have collected all 3 and you now get more life. Things like that, So that way you don't have to like sit there and be like, wait, you don't have to like look up at the screen. Like when you get the 3rd gold ring here, you're like, yes, okay, I now have the more's life.
Yeah. And once because you might have to look the first couple times, but then once you know it, you're like, oh, that's what that sound means forever. They don't reuse it lazily anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought all of that was pretty important.
I will say, because you mentioned the music, like that militaristic feel, and I agree with you. It has like a lot of the songs have kind of like the way I thought of it is like sci-fi Western, right? Like that kind of like gunslingers in space, right? Which kind of is like they're mercenaries, so they're outlaw space military. I don't know, the genre of this game is not really clear to me. There's I noticed that a lot of the music, I was like, I like this as background music. Like it feels good, but the mix felt a little off, where they were prioritizing the sounds of combat a little too much to where I couldn't really internalize the music. So when it was happening, like when the game was happening, I was like, oh yeah, this is good background music. Like feels appropriate. And like it varies level to level, which is always nice. I hate when it's like every single level just has the exact same kind of music to it. But then as soon as I would put the controller down, I was like, I can't remember any of those. Like they're all lost on me, but I can imagine that music in Super Smash Brothers. So I know it's a good piece of music and that it was like iconic in a way and that it was worth reusing, but like in the actual game of Star Fox 64, I just felt like it's ducked so far under the gameplay audio and the sounds of combat and then the sounds of do a barrel roll that like I was like, I'm just not internalizing any of this music. It's washing over me in the moment, and then it's just like your experience of this game as a child gone forever.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Do you have anything else
yes,
for...
dude, voice acting. Like, what the hell? Yes, this must be at least addressed. We don't have to drag it out forever, but I know voice acting was new to video games, but speech was not new to humans. We've had acting for thousands of years. Like, were video games considered such a trivial and flighty and unknown, like the future for video games was unknown, that no talented voice actor would sully themselves by doing a character voice in a video game, a childish video game? I mean, remember that Looney Tunes have been around since what, like the 30s or 40s? I mean, there's propaganda Looney Tunes cartoons about Hitler and Mussolini. So they've been around for a while. And Mel Blanc was a fantastic actor. He didn't just do a lot of voices. He actually like expressed emotion, and like you could tell how the characters were feeling. So cartoons are for children, and we were okay putting good voice actors in those things. Why in early video games with voice acting is the voice acting so bad? It's so bad. Like when Slippy, so I don't know if this happens on the hard route, but on the easy route, when Slippy like crashes on the planet and you got to go save them. Well, and so like the dog, your boss, who's a dog, who I think is a general who has hired mercenaries, which is always weird to me.
It's very pejorative, man.
Yeah. Okay. So that bitch.
God, you looked so defeated, man. Like you were just like, I am so tired. Just like just by me being like, that's pretty pejorative. You were like just in that one moment, you realized like how meaningless the world really is, and it just like, and then you bounce right back. But holy,
yeah,
how you doing, buddy?
I'll be okay. So your boss, the dog, that bitch. The dog says, "Hey, you can't go down there. It's like that's a dangerous place to go." And Fox says, "I can't leave Slippy hanging." And it's like that. Your friend might die or be dead. Yep. You are out of contact with them. So it's not like, hey, it's not like if your spouse is like, hey, I'd rather if you don't go to the bar with your buddy tonight. It's like your buddy's already at the bar. You're like, I can't leave my buddy hanging. Like it's so, oh God, every line of dialogue is just absolute freaking rubbish. They're all bad. I cannot remember a single well-delivered line. And because I really struggled with the mission, one of the base levels where Wolf and his people come in, the amount of times I had to hear, like, what is it? Bow down to Almighty Andros. But the guy has like this nasally, whiny, like he'd be a Poindexter on some, with like the pocket protector and the hair parted weirdly in the middle, be like, bow down before mighty Andros. I was like, okay, team, I have now forgotten what the mission is because all I can think is kill that guy, because if he comes over my radio one more time, I'm going to do one of those U-turns directly into the ground. No, actually, the voice acting is, and this is something I didn't really pick up on because it just, I agree with you. It's atrocious, but I play this game so much. It just is like, I can't imagine some of these lines being delivered any other way because I've heard them so many times and so awfully, but you are absolutely correct. And the one that, and the reason why I know that you're right is because right when you said it, I was like, that's why some of these lines stick out, is because they're almost uncanny with their poor delivery, Yeah.
So
yeah, nowadays you would say, oh, that's obviously an AI delivering that line. That's not real human speech. But at this time in history, it's like, no, you just found either a terrible voice actor or, it could be terrible direction. Like maybe it's a perfectly competent actor and the director was like, no, do it again, but way worse. Can you, no. That was like 20% worse. I need like 90% worse. I need it to sound like this is your first day speaking a human language. Can you bring it to that level? Yes, that was perfect. That was terrible. You are hired.
When the one line that I just remember is on the, and I don't know if this is done on the easy level, because I didn't bother, but on the hard one, so I believe on the easy one, when you fight Andros, you just you blow him up and then you take off. You don't fight Andros's brain, correct?
You fight the terrifying head, and then the head blows up, and you fight what I would describe as like a skull.
Okay. Yeah. So in the hard one, you fight his like a brain, like a brain with two eyes, Yeah, it's fun. But when you destroy that, he goes, and I think that this line is actually delivered in both as, "If I go down, I'm taking you with me," and it's like, and it's just so stilted that I've literally heard. I think about that line once a year, every year since I've played this game. And I don't know, but it's just because it's so stilted.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, anything else for sound?
No, just this is the voice acting is to the audio as the camera is to the visuals. Like the audio overall is like pretty solid. And then the voice acting is just catastrophically bad. And the way that it's deployed, like, I'll give them a little bit of a pass on like, yeah, we couldn't record 25 variations of every single thing so that you didn't get annoyed with do a barrel roll over and over. Like I can give them a little bit of a pass on that just for storage reasons. But if I have to hear this single performance of do a barrel roll over and over, can you make it a little better? Like a tiny little bit better, maybe.
And actually, I think to the voice acting thing, I think that I think you're right, because honestly, I don't think that there was, as you said, like much voice acting or anything like that in previous game generations. And so they probably, when they were budgeting for the process, they just did not budget a lot for voice acting.
That's probably the case.
Because they were like, yeah, what do we need? All right, we will need like this much money to build this and this much money to build this. And it's like, we need voice actors. And it's like, just Jim, you got a kid, right? Just bring your kid in here. Have him record Slippy's lines. Just say this, kid. But
it's in a way, we have panned some early 3D graphics. It really feels like, hey, there's voice acting, and it's like, yes, and that will be novel for a minute, and then we will be used to it, and we will start judging it based on its quality, not just the fact that it exists at all.
Right. But mechanics.
Yes, that's another thing that is in this game. Thoughtless mechanics. Just, I want to mention this up front, not because it's one of my biggest bugbears, but just because I can tie it right back to audio, which makes it a smooth transition. The amount they told me to do certain things like barrel rolls is hilarious. Do you have any idea how long I was playing this game before I figured out the difference between the gold and silver rings and what collecting them did? Why didn't anyone tell me that? Like, you got all these idiots jabbering in my ear nonstop. I obviously don't have the ability to turn my radio off because I would have. Like, why didn't someone say, like, Fox, crash into those gold rings and somehow it'll make you die harder? Like, that would have been really useful information to me. Or like, the silver rings will restore a little bit of your, I guess, ship's armor, because it's not really health, right? Like, why did no one just say that? Like, just once in the first level, someone could have said that. And then I had a moment where I was in the middle of like a dogfight, and there was the sparkly whooshy noise because I just picked up a gold ring, and I looked up because I could see the flashing, and I saw my little health bar get longer, and I was like, I would have appreciated knowing that sooner.
Yeah, I actually didn't struggle with that quite as much because, like for the gold rings and things like that, like I kind of felt that, when I got them, the audio cue to me definitely was peppy enough that I thought, I'm like, this is a good thing. It wasn't like the starship in F-Zero where it's just ominously hovering over me, and I'm like, what is going? Yeah, what is happening?
But it's like, it has a bright sparkly noise, but it in no way was clear to me, like, collect 3 to have a longer health bar.
So one of the things, I mean, I didn't struggle with that quite as much. I could see that being an issue, but that was not my particular thing. The thing that, and I honestly don't know how I feel about this. This is a first. Like, I don't know, man.
I don't know what to think anymore.
So I'm a huge fan, as we've discussed, of user-defined difficulty, right? Like, basically where, you can change your difficulty by playing the game. So I do like the idea of there being little mini challenges in each map that determine whether or not you are going to play it on hard mode or whether or not you're going to play it on easy mode. Like, for example, on Corneria, if you are deft enough to fly through all of the little arches, well, then you're probably skilled enough to play it on a harder difficulty. And then if you do whatever you need to do in that stage to get, continue playing on a harder difficulty, so the stages get harder and harder. That being said, though, I don't think that there is enough information for you to be able to garner or understand how to do that stage select unless you have the stage knowledge, internet, or Nintendo power,
Yeah, I mean, having just played through the game, I can tell you that nothing indicated to me that my behavior might impact the level I went to next, except for two things. And these were this was only enough information for like a argue with your friends at the lunch table discussion, not to actually like unravel the puzzle. When you look at the map, it's clear that there are places you don't seem to be going to, right? So like the in-between levels, you have like the galaxy map, I guess. And it's like, okay, we're here and then we're going to go here and then we're going to go here. And after you've done that a couple times, you're like, why am I not going up to any of those on the other side of the map? Right. And you think maybe like, oh, well, maybe we're going to go all the way out and then come all the way back. And then like, if you beat the game, you don't do that. Right. So it's like, oh, why didn't I go to any, why are those there? Right. So like there is enough to make you curious, but there's not any information to help you work it out, except the one place that it did jump out into my face is mission number 3, I think. And this is what I have in my notes. Is one of the ones where you're like free flying and you have to like save the base.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you run out the clock, that mission ends whether you save the base or not.
Right.
And so when that mission ended and I did not save the base and then I continued on to the next level, I had that moment where I was like, I bet if I had saved the base, something different would have happened. Right. Like maybe I'd go to a different level, maybe I'd hear different dialogue, but like the game behaved in a way that was unexpected where I lost and then things continued on, but it wasn't like in a JRPG where you beat the boss and then you lose in the cutscene, right? Like it felt like, oh, this outcome actually impacted the story in the universe. And so the fact that there's levels on the map you don't seem to ever go to, and there's a level that how you finish it, you still continue on in the story, was enough information to make me as a player be able to say, oh, I bet there's stuff here that I'm not seeing everything. But then there is no way to make the next leap to, oh, if I fly under all the arches, like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is that I think that they create enough negative space for you to like know that there is a mountain to climb, but not know how to climb it, especially for, some of them where it's like fly under all of these arches. It's like, that's a little obtuse. So I like the idea of that. I just don't think that it was necessarily, and there are some areas, like you said, like where they execute it well. There are other areas where I feel that they executed it poorly in this game.
So tell me, because Mr. Hard Mode, so like, what are some of the other things they make you do?
First of all, thank you for using my formal title, plebeian. But
it's so, I mean, that's really close to being like a bad porn name, right?
Mr. Hard Mode. I think it would absolutely be one if you had a very like distinct first name, like Rock Hard Mode.
Please, my father is Mr. Hard Mode. You can call me Rock Hard. Well, there goes that PG-13 rating we strive for.
Yes, there it is. The curtain falls. So I know the flying under all the arches is one. If I remember correctly, on the next level that you go to, there's an area that you go through where you have to, like, a whole bunch of enemies come at you and you have to destroy all of them. If if one of them gets past you, then Falco says, you were supposed to get them all, Fox. And you go, eat me. But then you also do go to the easier level.
You were supposed to get them all, Fox. And then you say, do a barrel roll.
Exactly. So So definitely, just stuff like that. So it's not and like I said, like I did definitely have difficulty remembering. I'm like, do you have to do this, or did I just think I had to do this in order to be the best that ever was?
Well, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that if Falco is being on brand and constantly like niggling at you and being like, oh, you screwed this up, or if you do something, the levels like the arches are designed in such a way that like you might think to fly through them, right? And then you get like that positive feedback, or if you get negative feedback in the form of him being like, you didn't do this thing. I think on enough repeated playthroughs, I probably would have noticed those kinds of cues, but I didn't. Like, I knew that just from talking to you, I knew this was a thing that could happen. And in looking around the world, I was like, well, I was never presented with like a chance to go left or right. And I certainly can't select it on the map. So obviously all of the level select is done through, arch challenges.
Yes, it's arches and hard determinism all the way down. One of the game mechanics that they did do that I really did like was that you have this huge health bar, right? Or in my opinion, it's impossibly huge because I'm good at the game. But what? But a lot of the times I feel that when you have a health or armor bar, it can be divorced a little bit from gameplay because, it's like, oh, well, as long as I don't take, it's kind of like in D&D where, if you've got 80 hit points, as long as you take 79 hit points of damage or less, it doesn't matter. Like you're bleeding from every orifice that you have and some new ones you just got. And like, it doesn't, you're still swinging for the fences. So what the game did that I did like is that if you take enough damage, especially on your wings, you'll lose a wing and then you lose your lasers, Like it will knock your lasers back down to the base laser type. So it's like I was way more careful about my damage because I didn't want to lose my lasers, less so because I was afraid I was actually going to die,
Yeah. No, especially if those kinds of like minor drawbacks, death being the big drawback, if those minor drawbacks are distributed over your total health bar pretty well, because especially in a world where you can get health back, right? You can get your gold rings.
In a world where you can get health back.
One man. No, so, because like you can play with that a little, right? Like you can say like, oh man, I lost my lasers. I'm back down to the crap laser. But now I've built my health back up and I just got another laser pickup, right? So you can, it's not a positive feedback loop where it's like, oh, well, I got hurt, so I might as well just restart the level because I'm never going to be back at full health, right? You can swing back up and win one for the team.
Yeah, I mean it's a failure spectrum, right? So it allows you to be in a failure state that is not death,
Failure spectrum sounds like a like one of those like nerdcore bands that like does everything with like super precise synthesizers and things where it's all like computer and like mathematical music. Like I would listen to a band called Failure Spectrum.
Absolutely. No, that'd be a great band name. I was just like, I was just picturing more so like going up to an employee and being like, okay, so you are now on the failure spectrum, So we have to talk about this.
You wanted to see me, Mr. Witt? Yeah. You like pull out this big like colorful chart, like what they show to people in hospitals who may not be able to communicate or may not speak the language of that country with like the faces in varying levels of pain. This is the failure spectrum. Where would you say you are on the failure spectrum?
Yeah, exactly. What were we talking about? Oh, right, this video game. One of the other things that I thought was kind of like a neat, clever thing is that like if you're again if you're on the failure spectrum, where your teammates need your help, and if you screw that up enough, they are out of commission for the next level.
Yeah, which I was a little shocked by. I was like, oh, this actually matters. Like, I can't let them die just so that I don't have to get hurt. Like, there are repercussions for your actions.
Yeah, because honestly, there were a couple of times I'm like, man, if Peppy needs a little bit of time off, to lick those wounds and not telling me to not have his PTSD flashbacks and telling me to do barrel rolls. Maybe everybody wins. But one of the interesting things though is that not only does that mean that and if I remember correctly, if it's the character, like you may not get that feedback, like we were saying, where how Falco will say, you didn't do thing X, so you may not get that information because Falco's out of commission.
Right.
But also, and I did not see that personally on this playthrough, but I'm confident that I'm remembering this correctly. If Slippy's out, you don't get to see the boss's shields.
I think I'm going to say that that's true, or there's something like maybe you don't see their health bar because
that's what I'm saying. You don't see their health.
Yeah. Because when Slippy crashes on the planet, you cannot see the boss's health until you free Slippy from the big tentacle hands, and then they are like scanning, and then that's when the health bar shows up, which I might add shows up as full no matter how much you've been shooting that thing in the face and or crotch.
I know, right?
Which is like, so are you scanning them, or did you like, are you Goku in the Cell games and you were like, oh Fox, you're here, let me just give this giant tentacle monster a sensu bean and then you can have your great fight.
Or yeah, or maybe I don't know. I was gonna say, or like maybe you don't really know where to hit them, but you are hitting them in the right place. But yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. How it's just kind of like, oh yeah, if Slippy's out of commission, Slippy is your analyst. He is the guy who analyzes their shields. So yeah, if he's not there, you don't get to do that. And I think that's kind of again like a nice touch, and it's a. Because when you're building a failure spectrum, you want to have it so that way the failure state is not, as you said, so bad that you want to go back and reset the game, or retry the level, right? So like if all of a sudden Falco's out of commission for a level, you're like, oh man, I didn't do as well as I could have. Not like it's not permadeath where it's like, oh, Falco's gone forever now, so we are
now a team of 3, y'all. Do a barrel roll.
It's just like with a DBC Abridged where it's just kind of like, where is 17? He's gone, buddy. That's sad. I am sad. Yeah, me too. But yeah, but that's the thing is if it was permadeath, then you would be way more likely to retry the level, which pulls you out of the narrative and out of the story, because all of a sudden you're like, oh right, it's a game. I can just press reset. So I think that I did like the fact that they kind of added that smaller failure state in.
Yeah. And this is, I feel like one of the things we haven't yet focused on in the 3D game era, and depending on what order you listen to these episodes in, maybe we have, and you're going backwards in time and quality, maybe. 3D games had more storage in general, not just for graphics and audio, but also for things like game engines, right? And so they could have some of these ideas that I know we picked on 2D games for not always doing. And not only did they now have the processing power to implement some of those kinds of things where they might say like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like you don't even know what to do for the hard level if Falco's out because he's not there to tell you? Wouldn't it be cool if like you can't see the shields on the boss if Slippy's out because Slippy's the analyst and Slippy's not there to do the work? Like, that'd be cool. Oh, and we can actually implement that. So not only did they now have the technological power, but they now had 2 generations of very popular video game consoles to start to hone in that craft of game design. So I think this, like the N64 PS1 era, is the grayest time in video game history for me as a player to say, did they not do this because they couldn't, or did they not think of it? Because It's right in that Goldilocks zone of like, well, game design was still a pretty new concept, but the hardware was getting pretty sophisticated compared to a friggin' Atari. Like, it's hard to know, like, do I blame the evolution of the medium, or do I blame the evolution of the technology that the medium, exists on? And this is a weird era to have a strong feeling about that. In the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis era, I often felt like they just didn't know any better. And like, now I'm not always as sure. Yeah,
no, for sure. One other thing that I have one other note, and then like a kind of a brief thing for mechanics, which is one of the things that they did that I really enjoyed was the fact that, so basically all it is you are an object in space that can fire lasers, right? And pretty much move 3-dimensionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
But you are predominantly in your R-Wing, there are levels where you get to be in a submarine and levels where you get to be in a tank.
And the tank has like the goofiest name. It's like the Earth Pounder.
There's your porn name right there.
Right. It's something terrible though.
Yeah. But I thought that was an interesting choice because basically with the tank, the only difference is that you can't move on the vertical axis, and you can actually, because you can use
hover.
your booster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just changed that a little bit, but like, as far as, game resources and things that they needed in order to make the game, not that intensive, but it feels different. It's like, so if you had like 15 levels where you're flying around in a spaceship, you're like, all right, this is cool. But instead it's like, yeah, but there's like 5 of those levels where you're in a tank or a sub or something else. And it gives it such a different feel, even though like all they did was just like change some animations and just give you one additional like rendered ship model. And that's it. Like everything else about the game is the same, but it makes it feel very different. And I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, and if you want to have one last opportunity to lord over me that I did not play any of the hard difficulty levels, I did not know there was a submarine. You don't see that on the easy path.
I appreciate you tacitly trying to say that by making fun of you for this, which I will, that it will be the last time, which it won't.
Long after
if you want one more chance, I'm
stopped.
like, one more chance, I'm going to take this one and the 5 more I'm going to make. But yes, no, there's a submarine level.
Neat. So let's talk at least briefly about the way you point your guns is tied inexplicably to where you are pointing your ship. Stop pointing your guns. Is tied inexplicably to, he was flexing at me for you audio people.
The people who exclusively listen, like it's like, for those of you who only listen to this podcast.
Now there's a bunch of people who think there's a way to watch the video version, and now they're going to talk about their uncle who works at Nostalgia Goggles.
Yeah. No, if you're $100 a month or more Patreon subscriber, then you get the video version. Actually, to be fair, if somebody did that, I'd probably be like, yeah, we'll record this. That's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not a Patreon level right now, but it absolutely will be if anyone is interested in that.
Yeah, so if you're interested, go outside of your house.
Yeah, you know what to do. So these super futuristic spaceships piloted by half cyborgs don't have the ability to aim their guns. You can only fire straight in front of you like you are the freaking Snoopy Red Baron, right? Like the gun is fixed to the wings and it fires straight ahead, right? That is not actually that much of a deal breaker for me, because like we've played bullet hell games where there's just crap flying everywhere, and in all of those games, or at least in all the early ones that we've played, you could only fire straight in front of you. Sometimes you would get guns that moved in a different way, but you couldn't point the gun, right? The projectile might move in a weird way and be like a heat-seeking missile, but you always just fire straight. It matters in this game because most of the levels, I'd say like 2/3, 3/4 of the levels, you are on rails and the camera is moving like those annoying levels in Mario where the camera just moves on its own, and you can move around inside of that. But once you've gone past like a certain point, it's not like you can turn around and go back, right?
Right.
So because of this and because of the way the rails system works, if you like fly up to the side of the screen and then allow the plane to level out, the ship to level out, like now you can kind of shoot over there, but you can't really see what's over there because now you're in the way. And so if you want to shoot at something that's in the middle of the screen, you have to like either be right in front of it, in which case you can't see them shooting you back, or you have to like fly up to a corner and then point yourself back at them, but at a shallow enough angle that you won't drift too quickly back into the middle of the screen because that's now the way the ship is facing and you're still on rails and being pulled forward. It's awkward and clunky and in a way that I'm struggling with this and finding this so frustrating because I feel so strongly that this is wrong and I have no clear answer on how I would do it differently. Like I just know I don't like it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is sometimes the thing that somebody once told me this, and I ascribe to it, which is that you don't have a problem until you have a solution. You know.
Yeah, that's a very like Zen Cohen.
Yeah, which is fine, but that doesn't mean that it's like I mean I may not be able to call it a problem. I can call it something I don't like, and I've definitely run into that too, where I'm just kind of like I don't know what to say. Like it's like I don't know how to do this any better. I am still not happy with the current affair of like the current state of things, and that is legit.
I suppose in a world of dual thumbsticks, you could have one to fly the ship and one to aim the guns, but you don't have that, so.
No, having the second analog stick was like the Prometheus bringing fire, you know, like it was just so entirely necessary that now when we don't have it, I'm just kind of like, how did we function?
No, this is definitely something the N64 got catastrophically wrong, was believing that either believing that people wouldn't be able to do two thumbsticks or choosing not to add that layer of complexity because history has borne out that was the wrong choice. So
yes, they are on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and every N64 game we've touched, and presumably everyone we will touch, like, this is going to be a thing that haunts those games and harshes their veneer over time, where it's just like, oh man, this would be great with a second thumbstick. It's like, what's the meme from Fairly Odd Parents? Like, this is where I'd put my second thumbstick if I had one.
Yeah, no, the only Fairly Odd Parents meme I always love is the one where it's the oh yes, 13 years ago when all of my dreams died. Wasn't I born 13 years ago?
That's from Fairly Odd Parents?
I think so. I'll see if I can find it. Anyway, we'll put it in the show notes or something.
Oh, but, no, I know another Fairly Odd Parents meme that maybe you just didn't know this was the source for it.
Oh, I think I know which one you're going to say. Go for it.
Yeah, that's for squares. Like pants.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Timmy's dad.
Yeah, I quote that semi-regularly, and like, and the thing is, I never watched Fairly Odd Parents, but you know, sometimes I'm like, that's for squares. Like pants. And people are like, what? And you just really just have to shoulder into it and be like, yeah, I wouldn't be wearing pants right now if I didn't, if it was socially acceptable.
Yeah, I wouldn't be wearing pants right now if I wasn't such a square. Are you cool? Are we cool?
Actually, this is definitely a funny side story. But I was talking to
I like that
or definitely a side
you've been
story.
Politely preempting your tangents today.
Yeah, but basically, Megan and I were this is just talking about like Square, right? So Megan and I were like sitting around talking, and Megan, we were just talking about like drugs, and I was like, oh, like
you do,
like you do. And, I was just like, talking about college and all sorts of stuff. And Megan just said like, yeah, nobody's ever really offered me drugs. And and then I started to say the thing that my brain said, like, this is the reason why. And like, I started saying it and literally my brain kept pumping the brakes at every word. But the other part of my brain just kept like, just barreling through, just like, nah, man, you've got to say this thought. So like literally what came out was she's like, yeah, I've never really done, nobody's ever really offered me drugs. I'm like, that's because you're a square. But so with that in mind though, I don't know if are you ready for the final question?
I have this one last random comment, which we don't have to talk about at all. I just need to say it.
Okay.
Playing a pseudo team-based squadron flying shooter thing for like 7 levels, and then getting to the final boss and the main Star Fox man on Team Fox being like, hey, I'm gonna go it alone, and your mentor, who absolutely has been babying you this entire time, your like rival ace pilot who has absolutely been trying to outdo you this entire time, and the like noob who looks up to you and would never want to let you go alone into danger, are all just like, okay, bye. Like when you say like, I will destroy Andros, like I'm going into this one alone, y'all, and they're all just like, okay, bye. And I was like, wait, what?
Are we? Well, and that's the thing though, is that if you play on hard mode, in the end, you do get a little bit of help.
Oh yeah, no, on easy, it's worse than getting no help, because it jarred me really hard out of the experience. I was just like, why are you letting me do this? Well, okay, one, why have I suddenly become suicidal? And two, why don't any of you care? Like, it is literally, you are paid mercenaries. It is literally your job to help me do this.
Yep, because on hard mode, your father helps you.
But he's been dead for 15 years. But seriously, he's alive?
They do that whole thing where like he like helps you get out, and he says like a bunch of like whole sage wisdom, including like trust your instincts, which is that thing that Peppy always says, and it's like, oh, he got it from he died from my dad.
Does he like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you like Luke use the Force like that?
No, like he's there. Like I honestly though I think that Fox is having a stress break. Like, because you both like fly out and like you barely make it, and then Fox like looks around and like his dad's gone.
Oh yeah, so
he's
totally Obi-Wan Kenobiing you.
Yeah, but the difference is though, it's not like you don't just like hear him, like you do see him flying and whatnot. But I do think that is Fox having a psychotic break.
That's why it's hard mode.
Yeah. So did it hold up? On that note.
Yeah, so when I was taking my notes, I was actually struggling with how I was going to phrase this when we got to this part of the episode, because there were things about the visuals I really didn't like, but overall they were good. There were things about the audio that I really didn't like, but overall they were good. And there were things about the mechanics, particularly the way the camera and the rail system works, that I really didn't like, but I did eventually learn to deal with it in a way that still allowed the game to be enjoyable. And I kind of was like looking over my notes and like playing a little bit and looking at my notes and thinking about it, and I was like, oh my God, I don't think you need nostalgia goggles for this game. I think I'm actually okay with this. And I'm like, I don't think I'm overly harsh on the games we play, but I was like, there were so many little things that I was down on. And when I stepped back and actually looked at the whole experience, I was like, hey, crap, I think this game actually held up just fine. And like, that's a weird feeling to have, to be like, it was good and I enjoyed it. Why aren't I happy about that?
Yeah, I think that the problem is that I think, and so I also think that for me, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like 5 being nostalgia monocle, right? Mm-hmm. Like to me, it's kind of like a 3, you know? So it's like, I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, it totally holds up. Like go play it tomorrow, you know? But at the same point in time, I would say that like, yeah, it's like potato chips, you know? It brings nothing particularly novel or unique or amazing to the table, but it is enjoyable. It's a fun experience. You know, you want to sit down, you play it for half an hour, that's fine. But like, I wouldn't, this is because normally I'd say like, well, who would I recommend it to? And like everyone and no one, because like if anybody was like, hey, I want to play like a fighter, like I wouldn't recommend this because it doesn't do anything where I'm like, check this game out. It does this thing that you should check out. Like this game just kind of does a little bit of everything and it does it all kind of good, you know, and it's just kind of like, yeah. So it's not, yeah, it's kind of like, I don't love this game. I don't hate this game. I nothing this game.
I don't think it's that bad though, because
that's the thing. So like normally I say it's like a horrid thing, you know, but it's like, yeah, no, I don't know. Like it just,
but let me
it's the protein shake of video games.
let me flip the script on you a little bit here, brother. I think the question, who would I recommend this game to, or would I recommend this game to someone, is a valid question. But the way I feel about this game, and this may be the first time I've thought about it from this particular angle, is if someone asked me, oh, I want to like play some N64 games, just like see what that generation was about, how's Star Fox 64? I would be like, it's fine. You should probably play it. Right?
Yep.
Like, I wouldn't go up to someone and be like, oh, hey, make sure you play Star Fox 64. Or like, hey, I know you've never picked up an N64 controller before, but for the love of God, make sure you play Star Fox. Like, absolutely not. Under no circumstances would I do that. But I wouldn't dissuade someone. If someone was like, oh,
Right.
I'm looking for... some N64 games. So I want to play the classics. I'm going to play Ocarina of Time. I'm going to play Super Mario 64. I'm going to play Star Fox 64. How's Star Fox 64? I'd be like, that's pretty good. Like it's good.
That's fine. So basically, like Star Fox 64 is the ship flying through space, and like everybody, saying like, oh, well, it doesn't do this well. Like all in your mind, like it was like it doesn't do this well, it doesn't do that well. Like your mind fired all that sort of stuff, and it deflected them all. And you know why? Just did a barrel roll.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone, there's no player two there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creeping with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less